stand any more tickets, my insurance is gonna go up.
Guys, welcome to a classic film review of 1988's cult horror movie, Maniac Cop. Now, this stars Bruce Campbell, Richard Roundtree and Robert Z'Dar and was directed by William Lustig, who also went on to direct the film's 2 sequels. It's the story of a series of brutal murders on the streets of New York City, the twist being that these killings are being carried out by a cop who's clearly a maniac. Now, a veteran detective is on the case and things are complicated when a young cop's wife turns up all kinds of dead and the suspicion is cast in the wrong direction. Now, the true nature of the killer being much more sinister. We won't pretend that Maniac Cop is a horror classic and it's not going to be turning up on a sight and sound poll anytime soon, but what it is one of the best B-movies of the 1980s, a film born to be rented on VHS and watched on a late Friday night. Let's take a look. So the late 1980s streets of New York City are even more dangerous than usual as a huge figure wearing a police uniform is murdering as many innocent citizens as he can get his huge hands on. So Detective Frank McCrae, played by Tom Atkins, is investigating and comes to suspect that the maniac may in fact be an officer of the law. When the press get wind of it, panic takes over and trust in the law is replaced with fear and violent self-defence. Now, meanwhile, Bruce Campbell's young police officer, Jack Forrest's extramarital shenanigans are uncovered by his wife, and even more unfortunately, she turns up murdered and he becomes the prime suspect in the Maniac Cop killings.
Why would he pick me?
Your size, your description, your personnel file. He's getting his information from inside the department. And of course, your sex life.
I'm telling you, nobody knew about that.
Now, the things that Maniac Cop is criticised for, cheesy performances, lapses in logic, just being genre filler, are in fact all the things that have come to be great about it. Now, this is only an 85-minute action horror, so it's fine that Detective Frank McCrae seems to piece things together far too fast, and that Lorraine Landon's female cop is less of an officer of the law and more of a typical 80s scream queen.
You with your great attitude really makes things nice. You know, I'll tell you something else.
And the titular Maniac Cop, played by the hulking, huge-jawed Robert Z'Dar, more about him later, is cut straight from the Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees cloth.
I'm not afraid to die, but to have him kill me when I love him so much.
Now, as with any slasher movie, and that's what this is really, the joy is in the kills. And here, in the best spirit of 80s horror maniacs, we have death by shotgun, bat and sword. Victims are hung and have their heads smashed against walls and windows. One poor fellow's drowned in wet cement. Now, I don't think Maniac Cop goes full horror for me. There is horror in it, even supernatural horror elements. However, it also wants to be an 80s action flick in places, and especially in the great stunt-laden climax. But it also flirts with some socio-political issues of the time, crime rates and police brutality, etc. This was a pre-Rudy Giuliani Manhattan, still plastered in graffiti with garbage and working girls spilling out across the sidewalks, which is a perfect atmosphere for this kind of film. But anyway, let's talk about the titular Maniac Cop. So Matt Cordell was a bit too trigger-happy, cleaning up the streets, judge, jury and executioner style. His superiors lock him up for a crime he didn't commit and throw him in jail with all the criminals he's obviously helped put away. Now, of course, things don't go down too well for Cordell in the clink and he's beaten up and killed. But of course, death isn't the end for Matt Cordell. He returns from the dead. Now, I am sure there's a moment in this where it explains that the doctor who signs his death certificate says Cordell was still alive but maybe severely brain damaged. Now, that may be the case, but if so, I'm not sure how that explains that he's seemingly bulletproof and isn't he able to appear and disappear at will? I don't know. It doesn't matter. What matters is he's decided to take revenge on, well, everyone really. So Cordell is played here by Robert Z'Dar, an actor with a very unique look due to suffering from a genetic disorder called cherubism, which causes excessive bone growth in the lower face. Coupled with him being about 6'2", he makes a truly imposing figure. The makeup effects that are used on this face here are actually fantastic. From what I remember, he began to look progressively more decomposed as the series went on, but he's believable here when he's throwing his victims around like little rag dolls. So I suppose the ultimate protagonist of Maniac Cop is Bruce Campbell's Jack Forrest, although he's not in it as much as I'd like, which is a bit of a shame. He was fresh off Evil Dead 2 here, and although the film doesn't call for as much of a comedic touch from him, he's still great as a kind of everyman type, but capable of getting involved in the action. Now, of course, a movie called Maniac Cop isn't really about the cast outside of the villain and his victims. Heck, even Shaft himself, Richard Roundtree, cameos here as the police commissioner, and I feel like Roundtree only played police captains or commissioners during the 80s. Anyway, the whole movie is serviceably directed by William Lustig, whose most famous film outside of the Maniac Cop series was the 1980 film Maniac, a film that IMDb's synopsis reads, a psychotic man goes on a killing and mutilation spree in New York City. Which doesn't sound a million miles away from this movie, but Maniac is a far nastier piece of work and not as fun as this in my opinion. As I mentioned earlier, Lustig also directed Maniac Cop 2 in 1990 and Maniac Cop 3 Badge of Silence in 1992. That film had a voodoo priest resurrecting Cordell in order to commit evil deeds for him. Anyway, Lustig hasn't made anything since the mid-90s, so I'm not sure what became of him. So this film was released in 1988, which was a period of time after the hysteria of the video nasties had died down, but still in the prime era of VHS rental store culture, when a sinister title and an enticing cover art would ensure a rental. This year, of course, saw the release of some other classic cult horror, Child's Play, the second Hellraiser, Hellraiser 2, Halloween 4, and of course, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. What a time. Now, for cheesy thrills and some old school kills, take Maniac Cop, add beer, pizza and popcorn, and enjoy. Go check it out.